Hello ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Del Pazzo back with you for another drawing video. Today we're going to do a drawing based on a very famous artist, and her name is Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe loved to paint. She's a very, very famous female artist. She's very good at painting lots of things, but she became most famous for painting flowers. Now, she didn't just paint flowers. She painted gigantic flowers. Paintings that were like as big as from Mr. Del Pazzo's floor in his art room all the way to the ceiling, and probably as big as my whiteboard, which goes almost from my garbage can all the way over to my door. Like humongous. And see, Georgia O'Keeffe believed that flowers were very beautiful, but people really didn't appreciate them because they really never look at them up close. Because let's face it, they're usually on the ground, right? They're growing out of the dirt, or they're maybe in a vase on a table, but how often do people really look closely at a flower? So she says, you know, I'm going to take care of that, and I'm going to make my paintings gigantic, which she did. She said, when somebody walks into a museum and they see my flower, they're going to be able to see my painting from across the room. So I have this book. This is big. Now, it's not as big as Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings, but it's really big for a book to show us how big her paintings were. So here's a beautiful painting Georgia O'Keeffe did. And you can see how close she got to that flower, that big, beautiful purple flower. See how pretty that is? Now, of course, the real painting of this flower is way bigger than me. It's gigantic. I'll show you one more. Here's another one. This whole book is filled with them. You can see, oh, this is a really pretty one. Nice big orange and red and yellow petals, and the middle of the flower, very, very detailed. So she wanted to make sure people appreciated her paintings by making them humongous. So when I do this in class, we make ours humongous too. Now, if you have a big piece of paper, you're going to want to use it for this picture. If you don't have a big piece of paper, that's okay. We can do it on any size paper. But you can see this is one of the examples, a student example. And you'll notice that there are 8 petals. There's 4 big petals going to the corners of the paper. And then there's 4 smaller, darker petals, the top, the bottom, the left, and the right sides. We'll talk a little bit more about how to color this in a little bit later. But first, we're going to draw our flower. And of course, we have the middle of the flower all decorated with little bright yellow polka dots. So there's a really pretty red example. And here's a nice pretty blue student example. It doesn't matter what color the flowers are. I've done them blue and green and orange and yellow. They look really cool. So I am going to put these off to the side, and then we're going to start drawing. So you're going to need a pencil. You're going to need a piece of paper. If you have a big one, I would use a big piece of paper. If not, any piece of paper will do. And of course, an eraser, just in case. Now, we're going to want to turn our paper horizontal, right, sideways, or this way. And right in the middle of your piece of paper, I want you to make 5 dots, at least 5 dots. Now, I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger because I don't think you're going to be able to see mine if I make them small, because my iPad is kind of far away from me. So I'm just going to make 5 dots right in the middle. Bam. Not too big. And I'm going to connect those dots, but I'm not going to connect them with a straight line. I'm going to have like a little thing that looks like a house. I'm going to make my lines curved because I want my outside to be pointy, like a little star. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to curve in toward the middle and then back out. In toward the middle, then back out. In toward the middle and back out. In toward the middle and back out. 5 curved lines. And if you have more than 5 dots, that's fine. You'll have more than 5 points. Not a problem. Now, we're going to make our petals, and we're going to start with the 4 big ones. Those are the ones in the example I showed you that went to the corners of the paper. We have 4 corners of the paper, so we're going to have 4 big petals. Now, when we make our big petals, now remember, Georgia O'Keeffe made her flowers so big they went right off the paper. And we're going to do the same thing. Our flower is going to be really big, and it's going to be touching all the sides of the paper. We're going to make it as big as we possibly can. Doesn't matter how big our paper is, our flower is going to be bigger. So when I make my petals, I don't want to make my petals with straight lines, because if I do that, I'm going to get that. That will not do. That's not a petal. I don't know what that is. Like a pointy stick or something. I can't make petals with straight lines. I have to make petals with curved lines. So I'm going to start right here on my star, and I'm going to make a line that goes up and curves over like I'm making a big rainbow. I'm going to go from my star up and over, and I'm going to go right to the corner of my paper. It's curved. Then I'm going to come down here, touch my star again, and this time I'm going to go down and then up to the corner. So my petals kind of start in the same place. They kind of finish in the same place. But in the middle, my lines are very far apart. It's kind of like shaped like a football or a lemon or an eye. Close together, far apart, close together. If their lines are curved, you're going to be in good shape. So I'm going to hop over to the other side at the top, and I'm going to make another one over here. I'm going to start on my star. I'm going to go up and over and to the corner, just like I did over there. And then I'm going to come over here, beside my star, and I'm going to go over and up to the corner. Two nice big wide petals. Now, I don't want my petals to touch in the middle. I've got plans for that little spot. So I don't want my petals to be touching. That's a good amount of space right there. They're kind of separate. They both touch the star. They both touch the corner, but they don't touch each other. And now I'm going to do another one right here. I'll touch the star, but not the other petal. I'm going to go over and then down. Now we're going down because we're doing the corners that are down there. Now I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go down and then curve over to the corner. Petal number 3. I've got one more corner left. Right over here. I'm going to touch the star, but not my other petal. I'm going to go over and curve down to the corner. You don't have to be exactly in the corner, but sort of in the corner. You probably already know what's coming next. I'm going to go down and then curve. All 8 of these lines are curved. They're always curving. And then you will end up with 5 nice, big, plump, thick footballs. Okay? Now, I've got 4 more petals to do, but these are a little smaller because these petals are in back of or behind my big petals. So they're just going to be peeking out the top, peeking out the bottom, and peeking out the sides. Now, I'm actually going to use a different color marker. Actually, I'm going to get myself a red marker so you can see it really good. There we go. Okay. So now these petals are kind of easy because the lines aren't nearly as long. So I'm going to come up here right in the middle of the curve of my football, and I'm going to make a line that goes from here to the top. But I don't want to do it straight. It's still going to be curved. It's not very big, but it's still curved. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to curve out and then in. I'm going to come over on this side and touch this petal and go out and then in. And you can see I've got a nice big petal peeking out the top. And then I'll come down here, and I'm going to go right about in the middle of my petal, and I'm going to curve out and then in. Out and then in. It's nice and round, like Mr. Del Pazzo's belly. Boom. So even though those lines aren't very long, they're still curved. They're still curving. And now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a petal right over here. So I'm going to touch this petal, except instead of going sideways, now my lines are going to be up. So this one's going to be kind of like a frown, or like you're drawing a rainbow. Up and then down. Going all the way to the side of the paper. And then the one down here, this one's going to be kind of like a smile. Down and then back up again. So that one curves up, that one curves down. But they're still curving. And I've got one more side left, right over here. You can see my paper is so filled up, my flower is bursting off the page. Touch my petal, up and down, a curve like a frown, and then the bottom, down and then up. So now I've got 4 big petals, and I've got 4 little petals, for a total of 8. Very good. 4 plus 4 is 8. So I have 8 big petals. Now, if you have paint, you can use your paint for this project. So these examples that you see here, these were painted. The way we did that was, we took a nice bright color and we painted the 4 big petals that go to the corners. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we took that paint and we put just a teeny tiny speck of black paint in it. And we mixed it up. And of course, black is going to make it darker. Now, I say a speck because if you put a lot of black, it's going to turn black. So just a tiny speck. And we mixed it up and we made a red, but it's a little bit darker red. And the blue one was just a little bit darker blue. Because we want to make these petals look like they're in the back, like in the shadows. So what we did was we painted that one and that one and that one and that one. We painted those with just a little bit darker paint. So if you want to try to paint it, you could paint it that way. Then we painted the middle of our star. Now, of course, we had to wait till all this was dry. And then once it was dry, we painted our star black in the middle. And then when that was dry, we took the back of a paintbrush, not this end that we normally use. We took this end. And we dipped it in the paint and went and made a dot. The back of paintbrushes make nice little round spots. So we dipped it in the yellow and went dip it in the yellow, dip it in the yellow, 1 or 2, dip it in the yellow, 1 or 2. And we filled that up just to create like some bumpy texture in the middle of our flower. And then after that was over and it was dry, then we painted our background. Now you'll notice that we've got some shapes here in our background. There's 8 of them. And they are, what shape? Triangles. Yes, so our background, if we made our petals correctly, should be like sort of triangle shapes. Some big triangles, some small triangles. And then you can pick really whatever color you want for your triangles. I would probably pick something that's maybe a little bit darker than your flower. That way your flower will pop out and your background will go back. There's really nothing back here, so we don't want to make it too interesting. So then we painted our background triangles. Now, if you don't have paint, you can do this with colored pencils. You can do this with crayons. You might be able to do it with markers, but you would need markers that were like a bright red and a dark red. Now, you say, Mr. Puzzle, I only have 1 red crayon. I don't have a bright red crayon and a dark red crayon. Well, that's okay, because you could paint these bright red, and then you could paint these with the same crayon, and then maybe just very, very lightly do either like a black or a brown or something, or a little bit dark right over top of it, and that will make that bright color a little bit duller, a little bit darker. So you can blend crayons. Colored pencils work a little bit better for blending, but you can actually blend crayons as well. And then you would color the middle. Now, the only thing that you'd have to do differently if you're doing it with colored pencils or crayons is you'd probably want to color the yellow first and then color the black around the circles. So because you wouldn't be able to put a yellow crayon circle on top of a black crayon area. That wouldn't work. Paint you can put on top. Colored pencils and crayons you can't. So you're going to have to plan that a little bit differently and maybe just draw circles and then color the circles in bright and then color around the circle something dark. Okay? And then, of course, you could do your background with just a totally different color. And you'll get a nice, big, beautiful flower. Now, moms and dads, if you're running out of paper, you say, boy, we're using a lot of paper for these videos, these drawings. Mr. Del Pozo has tons of paper. I've got drawing paper up here. So if you guys want paper, and I want my remote learners to have nice, good drawing paper. Okay, you don't want to do all your drawings on a little copy paper. You can't make an O'Keefe on this. I will be happy to give you all the paper you'll ever need. I can give you big giant paper like this. I can give you paper that's a little bit smaller, which is the paper that we use a lot of times. It's 12 inches by 18 inches. And all you have to do is just send me an email and say, little Sally needs some paper in Mrs. Fountain's room. And I'll be happy to roll up some paper, put a rubber band around it, put a little post-it note with Sally's name on it, and I'll put it down in the entrance right between our new front doors, and you can just come in and get the paper and be on your way. If you can't make it here, another way we could do this is if you know somebody who's in school right now, maybe your neighbor across the street is in school, let me know who they are. I will roll the paper up, put a rubber band around it, go down to their classroom and say, here, could you go and give this to Sally across the street? So you can come pick up the paper. I can send it home with whoever you'd like me to send it home with. And that way you can have lots of nice heavyweight drawing paper to do big stuff, medium-sized stuff. And that way you've got nice quality paper because it's here. We just have to get it to you. If you have drawing paper, that's fantastic. But if you need some, all you have to do is ask. Make sure when your Georgia O'Keeffe flowers are done, you put them on Seesaw for me, and I promise I will check them out, and I will send you a comment back. I'm sure they're going to look amazing. They always do. And I will see you at the next video. Oh, make sure the first week you're going to do the drawing part, and then the second week is when you'll paint it or draw or color it. Now, if you have a big piece of paper, you might want to start the painting or the coloring the first week, maybe. And that way, when you get to the second week, remember, you're working on these during your art times. So you're working on the Monday during your art time. So you might want to start the coloring part, especially if you have a lot of coloring to do or a lot of painting to do. And then the second week, you can finish it up, put it on Seesaw, and I promise I'm going to check it out. Okay? Excellent. Can't wait to see them. I miss you guys. We will see you at the next video. Bye.